Somehow we've made it to 2022, which means that I've been making sim racing videos on the internet for over a year now. So I think it's time for a fresh new update. In this video, I'll be putting together my brand new 2022 sim racing setup, and if anything featured here catches your eye, all gear will be linked in the video description. Starting off, this is the space I have available. It's not massive, but it's enough to fit a decent sized rig. The painting on the wall also looks pretty nice on video. For my new cockpit, I finally transitioned to an aluminum profile rig with the brand new Trak Racer TR120, which is an absolute unit. Sticking with the black and red color theme, I also went with Trak Racer's recline seat, which features red accents and stitching. My favorite part about this cockpit is that it is compatible with Trak Racer's quad monitor mount, which attaches directly onto the aluminum chassis. This not only clears up a ton of space, since I no longer need a freestanding monitor stand, but it also looks like a full-blown transformer once everything is attached. For those of you wondering, a full review on the TR120 will be coming out very shortly, so stay tuned for that. We're not done with the cockpit quite yet. This is because I've also decided to place a floor mat under it all, but of course not just any regular one. This is Trak Racer's premium floor mat, which comes with integrated RGB lights. Sure, it might not be necessary, but tell me it doesn't look crazy. Lifting the entire cockpit up in order to place this underneath was a bit of a hassle to say the least, and thankfully I didn't even try to record it. Next up, I figured I would start by placing down my computer. I placed it in this exact location for three very specific reasons. First, it'll be visible on camera, and I want it to be, because I think it looks cool. Second, it's close enough to everything so that I won't have any issues with plugging stuff in, and probably the most important reason is that at this very exact angle I could cable manage everything without the cables being visible on camera, but I'll talk more about this in a little bit. In my previous setup, I used three 40-inch screens. However, I actually decided to go back with the triple 27s. The exact reasons as to why aren't that important for this video, but I may talk about that in the future. At this point, my main goal is to get all three screens mounted properly. For any of you who have ever done this, you know it's a bit of a hassle and requires a lot of patience, but eventually I got the screens perfectly mounted. I also went ahead and attached a smaller 24-inch display on the top, which will be displaying telemetry data. Of course, I couldn't forget about the good old butt kicker that I was able to attach underneath the TR120 with the proper mount. For the pedals, I'm attaching the CRP pedals by Moza Racing. There are things I don't like about them, but regardless, they're the best ones I had access to at the time. They do look very nice though, so I can't complain. The very heavy Moza Racing R16 direct drive wheelbase was up next. If there is something that is really going to test the limits of this cockpit, it is this wheelbase, but I'll talk about that in the review. Of course, then I also had to attach the Moza Racing wheel rim. Again, a stunning looking bit of gear. One of the pieces of hardware that I was most excited to mount on my new setup was the Hurricane Wind Simulator by Sim Racing Studio. I'll be speaking all about it in a completely different video, but I figured I'd show a bit of the install here since it pertains to this. Mounting everything was a breeze, mainly thanks to the aluminum profile of the rig, and I couldn't be happier with how this wind simulator looks when attached. From the side profile, it looks absolutely ridiculous in a good way. For the shifter and handbrake, I had to stick to my roots and go with the TH8A shifter and Sparco Rally handbrake from Thrustmaster. And by sticking to my roots, I mean it's the only handbrake and H-pattern shifter I had at the moment. Regardless, I am still very happy with them. Of course then, it was time for the most time-consuming part of all, and something all sim racers can relate to, the notorious cable management. The play of the game here was my brilliant idea to attach a power strip on top of the monitor stand and behind the monitors. This allowed me to hide nearly all of the cables behind the screens and limit as much as possible the cables hanging down to reach my PC. Talking about my PC, as I alluded to before, I placed it in this exact angle so that I could hide all of the cables behind it and at the perfect position so they wouldn't be visible on camera. I also routed all of the butt kicker and shifter and handbrake cables through the side of the TR120 in the most discreet way possible. And finally, dozens and dozens of hours later, we were finally ready. Ready to set up and configure all of the software, of course. This involved tinkering with Windows 10 to properly configure all of the screens, setting up the software for the wind simulator, playing around with SimHub to configure the butt kicker and the telemetry display, and a few other things. And only after all of that was I finally ready to go find some headphones because I forgot that these screens don't have any speakers. Anyways, here is the complete build. Enjoy, and of course, thanks for watching.
What you have always known.